You are listening to the Enormocast.
Hey climbers, that rock that you lovingly caress every weekend is just never going to love you back. Of course, it's never going to suddenly ask you what you're thinking right now either. But devoting even a tenth of that energy into an actual human relationship might be a better bet in terms of love and companionship, no matter what your alpinist friends say. Peter W. Gilroy is here to help. Climber and jewelry maker, Peter can hook you up with just the right gift for that human in your life who just smiles when you get home late from the crag, or who says, "No, you're still hot," when you're clearly chubby and out of shape and stink of failure, or who's still belaying you even though you're falling lower and lower on your proj. Inspired by the rocks we climb and the mountains we love, Peter's jewelry and accessories might be just the thing to convince your significant other that you're not an obsessive crazy person in love with inanimate objects. So go to peterwgilroy.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on art you can wear and to help the Enormocast.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it
side
out.
of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
You
We really should.
The hell are you doing? I couldn't sleep. I'm checking the ropes. There was a frayed end on your rope, and I'm cutting it out.
Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime. Good time.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Hulus. It is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, an odd afternoon taping at the Enormocast. June 21st, this is episode 131 of the Enormocast, a conversation with Austrian climber Hansjörg Auer. Yes, the Enormocast bagged another European climber. He was passing through Rifle, and my friend Sam Elias got us together, talked Hansjörg into doing it, and I think he had a good time after all. I try to make sure that happens. Nobody doesn't have fun on the show. And hopefully we'll have Sam on the Enormocast soon as well. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that the Royal We, along with his entourage, yes, I'm talking about myself in third person again, will be attending the International Climbers Festival up in Lander, Wyoming, July 12th to the 16th. Be our 5th or 6th year. I can't remember. It's starting to all run together. We always have a good time, a debaucherous time, often. Often there's very little climbing. But hopefully we'll make it up to the crag. I mean, it is a climbers festival, but you know what I like to say. Don't ruin a good climbing festival with trying to climb. Anyhow, if you see us up there, come hang out, come say hi, come drink a beer with us or with me. If you see me nursing a Bloody Mary at the Lander Bar, just approach quietly. Don't startle the Enormocast. Also, while you're over there at climbersfestival.org checking out what's going on, notice that there is an auction you can donate to and try to get a day climbing with one of the athletes. And if you check out the list of athletes that are coming, it's quite stacked, including a certain Mr. Tommy Caldwell. And I believe he's bringing the family in tow, so that should be fun to see them up there as well. So again, the International Climbers Festival, 12th to the 16th up there in Lander, Wyoming. Come check it out. So let's talk about Hansjörg Auer. Not really a household name here in the United States, although he has popped on our radar over here in Colorado because he was the first person to free climb the hallucinogen wall in the Black, which is one of the hardest routes down there. In a lot of ways, the hardest route, if not at the grade, at least with heady climbing and whatnot. And he also got some notice here when 10 years ago he free soloed a route on the Marmolada in the Dolomites, a route called the Fish or Il Pesce, 12C, just shy of 3,000 feet, probably 900 meters anyway, which was an incredibly audacious thing to do. He had actually only done the route one time before and not even freed it with a buddy a few years before, 4 or 5 years before. And then the day beforehand, he wrapped down, ticked a few holds, rehearsed some moves, and the next day got up and free soloed the thing to where people talked about maybe he was suicidal, maybe he was crazy, but it also basically made him famous overnight. We talk a bit about that in the interview, but this is of course timely considering Alex Honnold's free solo of the Freerider just happened a couple weeks ago. This was actually taped before that, but if there's anybody in the world that gets close to understanding what Alex did up there, it's definitely Hansjörg Auer. And Hansjörg is downplayed comparing the two solos, noting that the free solo El Cap puts you on the world stage and in some ways makes it kind of mentally more challenging. However, a lot of people who know about the details of the Fish solo, El Pesce, definitely put it in something of the same category. And it's a shame it wasn't really noticed here in the States. Hansjörg Auer is the kind of climber that we really should be paying attention to. But you know, those Euros get away with stuff we hardly even know about over here in the States. So I felt really lucky to catch him here in Rifle because I've always admired him. And I'm hoping that you guys walk away from this with an interest and a respect for this guy as well. And since I know he's talked about Il Pesce ad nauseum in the last 10 years, we talk about a whole lot more. And it turns out that Hansjörg is actually one of the best all-around climbers in the world. So enjoy another charmingly accented Enormocast with Hansjörg Auer. La Sportiva is a proud sponsor of the Enormocast, and though they could rest on their laurels, keep tossing mirrors at my thick skull and watch me stroke them like one of Lenny's doomed rabbits, La Sportiva has in fact dropped several innovations on us for the summer. Behold the Kataki, a lace-up version of the laser-guided Otaki in case you need to squeeze more blood out of your toes to hit that jib. And the venerable Mythos has been updated to the Mythos Eco, a shoe made from 95% recycled materials and clean processing. And the Maverick, a fun, customizable shoe for kids, designed for a more comfortable, less restrictive fit on growing feet. Just the thing to convince them they love climbing before video games steal their souls and they never want to step outside again. So head to Sportiva.com or your local climbing retailer to check out all of Sportiva's new goods. And remember, when you support Sportiva, you support the Enormocast.
I want to ask you about the Black Canyon, because people who listen to this show and people who know me, that's a really special place to me. I'm living just a couple hours from the North Rim and haven't climbed there for a really long time. I don't usually see it on the radar of European climbers necessarily. So how did you hook yourself into climbing in the Black and then inspired you to try to free and successfully free the hallucinogen?
Yeah, it was in 2011 when a friend of mine, Ben Lepessin, he lived in Innsbruck, or he's still living in Innsbruck. He just asked me about climbing in the Black, if I want to join him climbing in the Black Canyon. And at that time, I didn't know much about it. So I just said to him, yes, well, we should go, no? Mm-hmm. And for the first time when I arrived on the North Rim, it was just like this kind of place where I felt at ease. I like places for climbing, not crowded, kind of adventuring, kind of, I don't know, also a little bit Chelsea Rock and whatever. So we came there with Ben.
You found it then.
Yeah. We came there and there was this hallucinogen wall, and we just started climbing it, ground up with a border edge in 3 days, and our goal was to see if it's possible to free. I knew at the time it was 99% already free climb.
Right.
Yeah. So it was just still 10 meters or something missing.
Well, it had that strange ice tool ascent.
And so we climbed up the thing and we realized, okay, it's possible, And then always important for me is the style, how I'm doing things, you know. And I think nowadays this changed a lot in the community, that I don't know, people or climbers are not focusing so much anymore about the style of a climb, of an ascent, you know. And for me, like, even if it's easy to wrap in Black Canyon because you're just camping on the top, you know.
Yeah.
I think to start the route ground up, it's something what comes out of our culture of climbing, you know.
Right.
You're approaching a mountain from the bottom to the top, you know. And I think in climbing we should do the same, you know. So we came there, started climbing Lucian Wall, and realized that it's possible to free climb it, you know. And then
so wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you climb anything else?
No, we just came there and just started right on the Lucian Wall because I don't know, we were just like
we're just still on the hardest one.
Yeah. and then
scenic cruise. Yeah, whatever.
Actually, I did it this time.
Okay, good. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And then we arrived at the top, and I was thinking about the route, and I thought, I think it's possible to do it in one day without hauling and everything. So we went out of the park because it started to snow a little bit. So we came back a few days later, and we hiked down the cruise gully, and we started climbing. And my friend Ben said to me that he will just like jog and support me in doing the free ascent. So I climbed every pitch first go except for the crux pitch. I had a second go, and I graded at that time. I graded the route 513 plus, but now I think it's a little bit downgraded because I remember doing a sideways dyno on the end of the crux pitch, and I think now I saw the movie of Hayden. Yeah. Now they are doing a little bit different.
Yeah, there's it's actually even.
It's still a far move, but I had to. It was kind of a sideways all-out dyno.
Right.
Yeah. But you know, in any case, I was really super happy about doing it, you know. And and I was always wondering why nobody of the climbers from here, you know, Boulder is not far, Rifle is here, you know, Carbondale is here, you know, why they don't went there to do it, because this was kind of a pretty obvious present, you know.
Right.
And actually, until now, I don't know why, you know. I was the first.
I know why.
I don't know why.
I do.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah. Well, because you have a place like the Black Canyon, and you brought those ethics with you, the ground up idea, because that's your style. You know, most places you go. Yeah. But you know, the Black Canyon's always had this very traditional feel to it in terms of that style, but I think even going back to the idea of working routes at all, whether you do it ground up or not, being a little bit bad. And so I think sometimes with areas like that, they get a little bit stuck. Okay. You know what I mean? And
I know what you mean, yeah.
Everybody who shows up there is very steeped, which is the word I'd use, in this tradition, and they don't necessarily want to break the rules. And
I got you.
And I'm saying, like, not as far as going down and like rap bolting or anything, because that's way out there, but although it's been done. But even, you know, being held back in terms of working routes really hard. Because they're, you know, so I think that's pretty much probably part of the problem. And you need someone like yourself who's not necessarily got all that in their head to sometimes, and it might have just gotten overlooked in a sense too. But it's an aid climb. People thought of it as an aid climb. And you didn't necessarily. We started the climb with quick throws and five Camelots, you know. Okay. Yeah, because we knew for us it was it was a free climb, but just 10 meters missing, you know. Okay. Yeah. And I knew that this 10 meters, I think it's not A4, you know. So it was okay to go with quick throws and 5 cams, you know. You know what I mean? It was just this kind of, and this is a point often in climbing alpinism, you know. It's not often about how hard you can climb, how strong you are, how mentally fit you are. It's often about how you approach a project, you know. Sure. Yeah. It was the same with my free solo climbs, you know. It's first of all, it's about finding the right moment, but then it's just like the difference to our forerunners is maybe how we approach the project, you know. How people approach now Cerro Torre and Patagonia is so different to
20 years ago. I would not say that climbers now who are going to Patagonia are necessarily much stronger or fitter, you know, but just the approach is different. And this different approach gives us, I don't know, more space to increase the level of our climbs and to put our sport a little bit forward.
Yeah, and I often frame it as vision, as this idea of advancing the possibilities, and it often takes, you know, and I always go back to this, but it often takes somebody from a different, at least slightly different climbing culture or place, you know, the way the Hubers went to El Cap. And even though El Cap had been freed, like, people were still kind of milling and waiting. And then those guys showed up and, you know, with an attitude like that of, well, let's just go up there and see, you know, and they broke the mold. And, you know, in the Black Canyon, you know, Josh has often been that guy a little bit too. But he also knows to kind of respect, and that's kind of what it comes down to, is like, you how far are you going to, you know, respect sort of whatever you think that the ethics are, but I mean, that's a great style to walk in there with, and I think people nice, you know? At the time, the people in the know, you know, everybody gave you that nod of like, well, that was really well done, because it is. I mean, the crux pitch is 200 feet from the rim, like
sure.
It would be very, and actually most of the ascents since then, I can't say all of them, but the most of them I know of, you know, involve a lot of fixed rope rehearsal first from the top.
But you know, in the end, you know, every, you know, I'm not saying that the style I like should be the main style, you know. Everybody can do what he wants, you know. It's just, I think you should, what's really important in climbing and alpinism is that you just like tell how you did it, you know. So as soon as you tell it, it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And then everybody can change his style somehow, you know. We are, you know, the professional climbers or the more famous climbers are not the godfathers of the ethic, you know.
Right. So, I know, but they kind of,
you know what I mean?
In the past, anyway, it's sort of like that. But now it's kind of flattened out.
I think, you know, in the end, and also as older we are getting, you know, we realize that it's, you know, this kind of small things, you know, it's not the most important.
Right, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, well, anyway, that was actually kind of the first time that I heard who you were. Because again, being friends with Hayden. And what year did you do that?
It was 2011.
Okay, so, and you just actually went there and put up another new route.
It was different this time, you know, because my friend Meyer from Innsbruck, I always told him that it's a really nice place, you know. It's kind of the same rock I have in my valley at home, you know. And it's this kind of wild area which reminds me of the Dolomites and just like the not crowded areas in the Alps. So I said to him, we should come back, you know. And I heard there's a new guidebook and everything, and we just like came this season with no main goal, you know. We just like we had everything with us, bought the ledge, and we came here and we were just arrived in Denver. We bought the new guidebook, you know, and we had a look and we decided what to do. But then we realized that between the old guidebook and the new guidebook, it happened so much in the black, you know. Like, I don't know, this guy Jonathan Schäfer or also Josh Wharton and all the other guys, they have put up so many new routes, you know. And so at the beginning we went to Indian Creek because it was snowing in the black, and we didn't really had a plan what we want to do, you know. And then we came there, we checked some routes in the guidebook, and we were looking for some 8 routes to free climb and whatever. And I realized that like the ethic of bolting in the black is super strict, and I think for me as a European climber, it's really important to respect that. So for sure, it's even if you are, and this is the only thing how you drill bolts is by hand in the black, but even doing that, I think it's not like the thing you should do as a foreign climber, you know? So we had some 8 routes to do, but then we looked to the topo and we saw for sure we have to put many bolts, you know. And sometimes I have the feeling that it's not worth to search for something hard to free climb and use adding many bolts to do so, you know. So in the end, I think some routes they should just stay how they are, you know. And So we came there, we climbed finally the scenic cruise, which was awesome.
Cool.
Like the third pitch was so cool, you know, the 510 with the long 60 meters, so 510 pitch. And then we just had a look to the guidebook and we said, we just make a rest day, and the next day we take our hammer, some pitons, our gear, we go down and we try to open a new route on the diagonal wheel buttress, because we saw in the guidebook there is some space between the first route there, the diagonal wall, I think, and the pathfinder on the right side.
Okay.
And we were just like going down, and I think for me it was really a nice project, because going down to the Black Canyon, opening a route ground up in one day, and having also the luck, you know, to find the line and to arrive to the rim, it's cool, you know.
Yeah.
And so we did. We started climbing. When we have been on the base of the diagonal wheel buttress, we were really not like, how do you say, enthusiastic, because the rock looked really bad, you know. It was steeper as we thought, and so. But we just started climbing, and both of us, Mook and me, we knew we will just check out some pitches, and anyway we will come down, you know. Mm-hmm. And then we climbed the first pitch, second pitch, third pitch, and then realized, it's cool, you know, and it's a logical line we are on, and let's keep going. And then we after 11 hours we were on top, and we opened this route, and which we named Mango Tango, and we graded it 511 plus.
Cool.
And there was one. It was one pitch which was really scary.
Of course.
So falling there was no option, you know, at all. So it was, I think, the third pitch.
Okay.
But so we gave 511 plus and the RX.
Sure.
And you know, I think it's nothing major what we've done there, you know, but just like now coming 2 times to the Black, first of all doing the hallucination running free for the first time, and now opening a new route, it's kind of a nice package. What I have,
it's a good resume.
Yeah, and it's and it was really nice because
you didn't bother doing maiden voyage or anything. You didn't have to work your way through all that garbage.
And then that was our trip to the Black, and then we left the Black because we went to God's Creek for smoke climbing rifle because it was getting really hot.
Yeah, and
we wanted to see something else, you know.
You know, when Sam told me that yesterday, he said, they went to God's Creek, and I went, it's tick season.
Oh, yeah. We had so many, you know, we were like...
Dude.
But we had fun. We did this 13B there.
The full facial.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah. But it was so funny. I'm like, oh no, it's tick season, and tick season is serious there. Yeah,
no, we came up, you know, my friend said to me,
20,
you have a tick here, and I said, oh yeah, I have one here, and then, here, and here, and here, and here. And then we were staying naked there, you know, looking for ticks, and there were 2 climbers higher up, looking at us. What are those guys doing, you know?
No, it's bad, right? And then it just goes away in like another couple weeks.
Yeah, they said it's just a few weeks, no?
So anyway, it was funny when he told me that, because I've had the same experience. I went to put up a route there in April, and 60 ticks, maybe 70 on me. It was horrible. Anyway.
But it's really nice to see the climbers in the Black like getting psyched of this adventurous side of climbing, you know. And actually, we don't have that in Europe, you know. If we would have the Black Canyon in Europe, you won't see like 2 girls climbing together a route there, you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this kind of tread climbing on Chaussee Rock and on this like steep walls of the Black Canyon. This is something really unique, I think. And for me, like, and I'm sure it's not the last time I was coming here.
Good.
And
Good.
It's just.
No, I like that. That's kind of why I wanted to open with that. We spent 20 minutes on it, but it's cool. I was like, all right, you know, because I've taken friends there, European friends, and some people love it, and other people, you know, it's terrifying and it's not great. But we around here, I mean, we're close by, so we totally love it. And I had a question here about like kind of those projects that inspire you, but I think you kind of covered that in terms of what you said about the Black. I mean, and then you climb the Dolomites and things like that.
Yeah.
So the adventure and less people and
actually it was, you know, for me, like when I was a kid, you know, I was actually I was starting as a mountaineer. I grew up in a family with 3 brothers, 1 sister, you know, and we grew up on a farm, you know. We had these 3 main things, like the farming, the mountains, and also the music, because my mom was really into music. We all had learned an instrument or whatever. So, but at the beginning it was all about just going to the mountains, you know. And I was starting climbing. I was actually starting climbing with 12 years old, but then I stopped, and actually starting climbing, I would say I did with 16, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was just like kind of a natural development, personal development. Like I wanted just to go a little bit more extreme to the mountains, and that was the climbing.
Okay. Yeah.
But at the beginning it was all about mountaineering and not climbing. So mountaineering, and then I realized I wanted to do some hard routes in the Dolomites, you know. I realized that my level is not good enough, so I focused more on sport climbing, and I did at that time also the hard multi-pitch routes, also the many solo climbs, you know. But now I have the feeling that over the last years I was coming back a little bit again to this alpinism thing, you know, mountains, high mountains, and so actually for me now it's really hard I can't decide. If people ask me, are you an alpinist or a climber, you know, I have to say both, you know, because it's just like, for me it's like together. Yeah.
And you know, I think about the US anyway, and in climbing in general, but my experiences here with people, they are kind of specialists. Is that common kind of European or maybe Austrian style, is to be somebody that is good at everything, or like, you know, these awesome rock climbers that can go into the mountains and vice versa, or is it sort of rare there too? Because it feels a little rare here. Like it's kind of one or the other.
No, it's also rare in Austria.
Okay.
You know?
I mean, like we have our friend Hayden, who's like that guy, and you're kind of that guy.
Yeah,
but,
I was. Yeah, maybe the same. No.
Okay.
And but actually, I think nowadays, you know, in climbing, it's more about the specific disciplines, you know, and. For sure, if you want to be really strong in one discipline, you have to focus on that, because the level is everywhere so high, you know. Mm-hmm. But actually for me, just to follow one discipline was always something a little bit boring to me, you know.
Sure.
I like sport climbing a lot, but I like ice climbing too. I like mountaineering, skiing, whatever, you know. For me, it's just, I try to maintain kind of a high level in all disciplines. And it's just like do what I'm up to, you know.
Right.
And for this spring, for example, I was focusing a little bit more on climbing, sport climbing, because I decided only to do one expedition for this year. Over the last years, I always did 2 high altitude expeditions, which was a lot, you know, and getting too much. Right. I have the feeling. Mm-hmm. But it's on expedition, I miss the climbing. When I'm only sport climbing, I miss the expedition. So it's kind of
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there are just a handful of climbers in Austria where I would say they're really, really strong all-around climbers.
And it just takes time.
Too. Yeah, I mean, it takes time. And it depends how you grew up, you know. Mm-hmm. So for me, like going to the mountains is so natural, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, because I was doing as a kid, like every weekend, you know.
Yeah.
With our parents and my brothers, and in the end, every discipline has its right to be there. You know?
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to the alpinism, and I want to step back to the soloing a little bit. You just kind of mentioned that it was something that you were maybe currently are into. I'll ask you a little bit about that too. The actual first time I ever heard your name was when I think a lot of people in the world did, when you free soloed the fish in English, which is terrible sounding, but in Italian it's
Pesce, you know.
Yeah, Pesce, the fish, and on the Marmolada, which is I don't know, it's like what, 7C?
Now it's a little bit, it's 7B plus.
Okay,
but
12C anyway.
Yeah,
here
12C.
in the States, big route, and you know that, like I said, it puts you on a world stage. I think, like, I mean, was it that sudden in a sense?
You know, at that time, our solo climbing for me was not that special, you know, because I was.
Were you doing a lot of it?
Yeah, I was doing a lot, you know.
So it's not like you just woke up.
No.
Okay.
Actually, my first route to Marmolada in solo I did 2 years before, in 2005.
Okay.
Then I did a big one in 2006, Tempi Moderni, which is really a super classic one. Mm-hmm. And the solo of Pesce was just like kind of a logical step, you know. And like for me, the thing was that for me, the problem or the harder thing was not the climb itself, finding the right moment, being like psyched for it, feeling great, you know. For me, what was really hard was coming back home after a solo climb.
Sure.
Because it's different to Europe, you know, different to America. In Europe, if you're doing crazy solos, you know, the scene is not building up this kind of heroes, you know.
Okay.
It's more like, this guy is crazy, you know.
Sure.
And you don't want to be the crazy guy. So, or at least for me, you know.
Right.
So that was the reason why I always tried to see myself not as a free solo climber, you know. I kept this discipline super, super low, you know. And now 10 years after I did Fish on Marmolada.
Yeah, it's 10 years this year.
Yeah. I have to say that until now, for me, like it's crazy, you know. And those people who have done the route, they will say this guy was suiciding himself or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But it was not at that time, you know. This was a dream I had, you know, and over the years I would say also after Pesce, you know, I would say I did 6 or 7 like really hard solo climbs in the Alps. And my last one I did actually last year. I did a project in Dolomites, solo climbing and paragliding in between. Like I did 3 walls, solo climbing and with a paraglider in between. And actually I have until now, the project was not published, but I think we will do it next weeks because there is a short movie coming out.
Okay.
And so still now, you know, solo, I can do still solos, you know, but it's just as you're getting older, the moments where you feel it's the right moment, they are getting less.
Okay.
Because there are so many more people now around myself, you know. So it's a way harder to find the moment where you are alone and just go, you know. And in the end, you know, I'm really happy that I didn't brought myself under pressure with solo climbing because for me, I can't say to you if there's coming up something in the future, I don't know it, you know.
Sure.
If I have the feeling, you know, I go.
Right.
And I did it in 211, I did one in 212, I did one in 214, you know, 215. So, but yeah, I think it's just really important that you see it as a unique discipline, as something what is really rare. And as soon, like, except for me, you know, as soon as it's becoming routine, I think it's getting dangerous, you know.
Okay.
So, because if you have done a hard solo, it's easy to do another one 2 days later, you know, because you are in that kind of mood, you know, and you are feeling really safe and it's this kind of power you have, you know, at that moment. But after I did a solo, I always stopped, you know, I always said to myself, okay, this was it for that year, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And I think also with high altitude, you know, the thing is, the more often you go, there is always risk, you know, but the more often you go, the more often there is the chance that you're not coming back, you know.
Sure.
So I think I think in risky disciplines of climbing and mountaineering, I think the key to get all this to focus on quality and not on quantity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the point to keep in mind a little bit. And if you follow that, I think it's cool to have that. Because everybody of us wants to get old, you know. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're someone who's a big route climber, whether it's high altitude or, you know, you seem to be one of those folks who's going from one kind of like inspiring project to another. In terms of the high altitude stuff, I'm not really super familiar with your resume on that end of things. What kind of climbing are you looking for when you get into the bigger mountain stuff these days? Like what is the mode? What looks like a good expedition to you when you get into that? And maybe an example from what you've done. Yeah.
No, for me, like high altitude climbing is for me going on expedition, first of all, with good friends, you know, having a great time at base camp. I'm always saying, coming home from an expedition, if you can think back of a fun, great time in base camp, it's already successful, you know.
Okay.
So but like climbing wise, I'm focusing on technical routes on 7,000 meter peaks.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2013, I was climbing this Kunyan Kish East in Pakistan for the first time. It was like the first ascent of the summit, and also we did this really huge southwest face. And this was kind of I was a little bit in high altitude before, but this was kind of my first real success on a big high altitude expedition. And over the last years, I was just following this idea of finding like unclimbed walls on 7,000 meter peaks. Mm-hmm. And actually now this fall, I'm going back to Annapurna 3, where we tried the Southeast Ridge last spring. And we are coming back this fall to have another go with David Lama and Alex Blümel, two friends of mine from Austria. It's just so different to like just going out climbing. It's an expedition there's just so many more influences you have to work on, and but in the end, it's always the success of a team. Mm-hmm. So and it's really nice to play with this kind of the high altitude, which is the limited factor you have, and you have to deal with it. And this is something what inspires me. And for me, like in high altitude, it feels much easier to climb technical terrain than just like digging through deep snow. Digging through deep snow, right, feeling much harder than climbing.
Sure. And
so in the end, I'm happy if I can find like cool projects on 7,000 meter peaks, also 6,000 meter peaks, but it's not so easy anymore to find them, because like we have been on Mashabrum in 2014 in Pakistan on a northwest face, a northeast face, it's a really cool project, but which is so dangerous, and you have to take so much risk just to get to the base of the wall,
Sure.
And I think it's we have to take risk doing like technical routes on high mountains, but I think it must be in this kind of corridor, where it's acceptable. So if it's above, I think it's not worth it,
Sure.
So because there are still so many projects out there, and you can just choose, and yeah, I think in the end, that's the way to make yourself happy, on an expedition.
Yeah, and you mentioned when we were talking about the fish, how you didn't want to come home and everyone saying you'd be the crazy guy.
Yeah.
And actually, I was thinking about the video I watched of you a year later, I think, like talking about it. I think it was maybe 1 year afterwards. So you're like sitting.
Oh yeah. Like really young,
Yeah, super young, and that was the thing. Like sitting across from you right now.
It's the most honest movie. I think the most honest movie on the web I have.
Okay,
because
good.
it's so super honest,
right.
And it's what I'm saying there. It's just like how it is. There is no fake, nothing, and if you see this movie, you also see that like solo climbing, it's a dream, a passion of this guy, and it's not something what he's doing to become famous,
Sure. Yeah.
And I wanted to say this before, like after the fish solo, I had a hard time, because I became famous within a night, more or less. And,
like looking at you, I mean, just the different, 10 years ago, like that kid in that video and the guy sitting here, it's such an evolution.
Yeah. No, I changed, and actually I was lucky, and I'm happy now that after the fish, I didn't get any big contracts from companies,
Sure.
So I was still like doing my exams, becoming a teacher for maths and sports, and this allowed me to grow naturally and to kind of get used to this professional climbing, which is not that easy as it looks like,
Well, it's funny because in the video you actually say, "No, I'm not going to be a professional."
Yeah. At 2000, after the fish, I always said, I don't want to earn money with climbing,
Right.
But then it just, like the door opened, and I went through. I could have gone not, but I did it because I realized, okay, maybe it's nice and I can just climb and earn money, and, so it changed myself, but I'm thinking that I'm still like kind of the old guy I was, you know. For me, like, the authenticity is the most important thing you need to have, and you have to keep it, you know. And in the end, now I'm here where I never wanted to be, you know. But it's like that, you know. And you know, life is still good, and I'm happy climbing, you know, and traveling around. And
well, I think,
and actually, it's nice. I wrote a book.
Okay.
So over the last few years, I wrote a book. It's called South Face. It's coming out this fall.
Okay.
Yeah. Just in German for now, but I think for next year we translate it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like writing a lot.
Good.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about what you said in that video, and why it's like not necessarily, you know, some sort of like, you said you were never going to be a pro and now you are, is, you know, what you implied is, I think, what a lot of people worry about, not just the folks who are becoming pros, but even us watching. Like, do you have to, you know, will you have to be obligated to outdo yourself if you're a professional climber? Because that seemed like the way you said it was your concern was like, well, you know, if you're going to go do some other risky thing because you have some sort of contract or you have some sort of, then it's...
And this is something what I didn't want it to
and
do,
I think, you know, anybody I've talked to who climb risky things, whether they're free solo or not, you know, talk about that concern. Like, is the camera on? Am I going to do... I mean, skiers, I know, talk about... Extreme skiers, like whether or not they do things for the camera that they don't normally do. So, I mean, I see that concern, but one other question I had, and you mentioned it in there too, is coming back and not just the community looking at you, but you talked about a little bit about your friends, your climbing friends, and your family and your mother, and specifically, you know, rolling their eyes or being worried or being upset with you and being angry. Where are those? How do you feel about that now? I mean, in terms of your family or in terms of the risk you're taking, because, you know, we all know, and before we started the podcast, we were talking a bit about you, Lee Steck, who just passed, that the high altitude climbing is, you know, it may be maybe not as suddenly dangerous as free soloing, but it's a dangerous game up there, and you just mentioned it. As an older guy, as this arc from that kid who was on that video to now, like, the risk, is it important to you that you climb at least stuff that's adventurous? And I just did the air quotes. Or how are you dealing with the risk with your family, with your friends?
First of all, you know, I think taking risks for me, you know, like going on a climb and taking risk is something what actually I like it to do, you know.
Okay.
It depends, you know, if you know you're going on a climb and it's risky, I think it's okay, you know. The problem is if you're on a climb and it's just an easy, normal climb and it gets risky, that's another chapter, you know, that's another topic. So if I'm doing a solo, you know I don't have, it's not allowed to make a mistake, you know. And I'm sure about that, otherwise I would not do it. It's not Russian roulette, you know. And for my family at home, for my friends, it changed a lot, because at the beginning it was, they were not sure about why is he doing that, you know. Does he want to get famous? Is there happened something in the childhood, you know, whatever, you know. But over the years they realized that it's something what he likes to do, and they trust me a lot. Also my mom, you know, trusts me a lot. And there was one moment when I planned to do a solo climb in Dolomites, and I came back and I told my mom it was not the right moment. I came back and I couldn't do it, you know. And from that moment on, she said she trusted me, you know, because she knows that I can also go back, you know, without doing it, you know.
Sure.
But you know, in the end, I think climbing and death, you know, and I realized it for myself, because in 2015 on my expedition to Nilgiri South Face, I lost my good friend Gary, with whom I started climbing on the way down from the summit. And if something happens to you, like something like that, you realize how close it is, you know. The success in climbing, and I mean now expeditions or risky climbing, and the death, you know. And I think in the end, you know, going on a trip, you sign kind of a contract, you know. And if I'm going on a trip to Rifle for sport climbing, there is a contract where you have the lines like, you will have fun, it's great, there is good rock, you can climb some hard routes, you will meet people, you know. And at the very end, there will be the line, but you can also die, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's on the very end.
Right.
If you go on expedition, this line, you can also die, is higher up, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just higher up, and you have to know that. So in the end, you know, when something happens, you know, like now with Uli and also with my friend Gary, you realize that it's not, I mean, part of the game is the wrong word, you know, but it's just like, if there's a cake about an expedition, you know, a small piece of it is that somebody can die, you know, and if it comes, it's for sure, it's a big tragedy and it's really hard to come over it, but I think it's just like something what's there in our life, you know. And I mean, when I lost my friend Gary, you know, it took me a few months, you know, to feel again like how it is climbing, you know. And now I have the feeling that the sadness of Nilgiri, you know, with every day I'm going out climbing again, the cake of the sadness of Nilgiri is getting smaller, you know.
Okay.
Because the good moments grow.
Right.
You know, and it takes some years, you know, and, you know, it will always be there. There will be always moments where you, for example, when I'm going with my car, you know, and there is kind of a melancholic music, you know, it can happen that I start crying, you know, because it's there, you know. But the cake with the good things about climbing, the meeting people, have fun, you know, and success and whatever, you know, it getting bigger than the cake of the sadness. And I think in the end, also now with Uli, you know, it's a big loss for all of us, for the community, but he will never be forgotten. His dad will always be there, but I think we have to move on, and the more we move on, the more we remember the good things of Uli's life in our community. And I think that's the only way how to overcome it and to see it.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, for sure, it's always hard for your relatives, for the family, for the girlfriend, if something happens like that, because they are thinking, maybe Hansjörg, he could be this guy, you know. So it's never easy, but in the end, I think it's just kind of natural, and it's not stopping doing your passion. I think it's not the way to solve or to come over it, you know.
Sure.
In the end, it changes you. So everything what happens in life, you know, if you lose a friend or one of the community, it changes yourself, you know. But I think it's just important to go on and see the change in a positive way. Yeah, it will be never the same, but it's it is how it is in the end, and you have to keep going. And I think it's really important to talk about that for the community, because in any case, you know, it can happen to every one of us, you know.
Sure.
And I think, we.
You mentioned Gary, the partner that died, as being one of your early partners. Do you have other like mentors or anybody that you can point to in terms of your life as a climber? Somebody in your family was your...
Actually, there was, like, I'm not the guy who has like these classic mentors, but
sure.
But there was one guy called Reinhard Schierstl. He was a leading alpinist in the 80s, like part of this Dolomites scene, and also he went to high altitude with Reinhold Messner once on Annapurna. He was part of this community. Heinz Mariacher, you know Heinz Mariacher? Of course. Yeah. He was part of this community, and he moved to Ötztal, to my home valley, to work as a teacher, and he started like the sport climbing there, holding the first routes, you know, and whatever. And I always felt really somehow close to him, and he built up this community in our valley, and I think he was such a great person, you know, not only like climbing wise, but also like as a person. But then in 1995, he had a car accident and he died, you know. Okay. And this was kind of a big loss for our community, and I was really young, you know, and at that time I realized already, you know, that life is not, it can be short, you know. And like Reine's life was really intense, you know. He did so many great things, you know, but his life was short, you know. But in the end, I think he had a good life, a short life, but a good life. He did so many cool things. And I think we all have to use every day out, you know, and to just do what makes you happy. You have to have the feeling coming home from a day climbing that it's the right thing what you are doing, you know. Mm-hmm. And if you have the feeling it's not the right thing, then you have to change something, you know. And in the end, Reine was one of those guys. And but over the years, for sure, I met so many great persons in our community, like Simon Antermatten, the Swiss alpinist from Zermatt. I was with him on expedition. Also Hayden Kennedy from Carbondale, you know. And maybe I'm not the guy who is like really good or really open to connect with everyone who I meet, you know, mm-hmm. or I'm not the guy who is traveling to this place and contacting everyone I know there. But there are just a few people I met over the years where I had the feeling that, I feel really close to them. And also Steve House, you know, I met him a few times, and it's really nice to have those people there. And I think every climber in our community, everyone, even if he's climbing 5A or 6C, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, everyone inspires us, you know. But there are just maybe a handful of people which for me, you know, inspires me more, because I'm just feeling like more on the same path. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, and this is the good thing about climbing. And in the end, I think if you meet those people, you know, you realize easily or really fast that in the end it's not about doing a hard route, you know. In the end it's about living the climbing culture together, you know, and the exchange we have like every day, like meeting the new people, and this sending hard projects or being successful in expedition. This is something what I think grows out of this plant of inspiring people around you. Mm-hmm. So in the end, I think for the young climbers, you have to first of all have fun what you are doing, get inspired by people, climbers you like, and then just like keep it easy and natural, and in the end it comes out, you know. Mm-hmm. So I think there is not how do you say, the recipe when you make food.
Recipe.
The recipe. There's not one recipe.
One recipe.
No, it's just like everybody can. Yeah, and I think it's good to have many people around inspiring you, and in the end, this is my life, and this is our life in climbing.
Were you a kid who, when you started climbing or were getting into it more so, did you have a sense of the history of it around you, and not just where you lived, but even a greater history of the climbing?
I think that's what I'm missing. If I can speak a little bit about the nowadays community, I'm seeing it, you know. Mm-hmm. That's the thing what I'm missing a little bit when I see the young climbers nowadays, that they are not that interested anymore in the tradition, in the history of climbing. When I was as a kid, for every Christmas, I got a book, you know, from my mom, and this was I wanted to have that as a present, you know, a book of Hermann Buhl, whatever, all those guys, you know. Sure. And I read those books not only one time, you know, like many times, you know, and I was really fanatic in the history of climbing, you know. Mm-hmm. And you have to know the history of climbing to understand our culture of climbing. Mm-hmm. And our culture of climbing, one example is, for example, that you approach a climb, a mountain, a wall, a face from the bottom to the top. If you know the history, this is obvious, you know. If you don't know the history, maybe it's not obvious anymore. So, and for the young climbers, even if it seems to be boring, it's not boring to read an old book, you know, of an alpinist or of a climber. It's, you know, there are for sure books around who are like exaggerated, like superhero style. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you know, there's always something there what you can take out. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, like, we have this in climbing, we have the how we say, the sport side, the sporty side, sport side of climbing, but we have also this cultural side of climbing. And I think it's getting really interesting in the future how it will be with all those kids coming out of the gyms, or just climbing in the gyms. The sports side will go much bigger, but I think it's really important that we don't lose the cultural aspect of climbing, because this is something what was growing over the years, and I think we have to keep it. And with the influence of the sport, of the climbing, we can change it a little bit. The culture will always change, but still the few things like approaching ground up, whatever, like trying to avoid too many balls, whatever, there are many kind of rules around. We have to keep them and just like give a little bit influence from the sports side of climbing.
Not let it overwhelm.
No,
Yeah, right.
because like, for example, in Dolomites, we have so many walls without bolts, but we have also walls with bolts, I think we just have to keep both.
Right.
And not just like avoid the boltless walls, but just like keep both. Because, we keep it growing, like the gyms, the sport climbing. It's really cool, and it's really important. And also for myself, I like it a lot. But you also have to keep the traditional things. But, if the young generation doesn't know about traditional things, maybe it disappears.
Right.
And I hope not.
Right.
And the Black Canyon is something what is traditional,
Right.
And like I explained before, as soon as I realized that it's really tricky to add bolts in the Black Canyon, I respect that, and I changed maybe my attitude and my goal or whatever, but I just keep the traditional climbing. And
you mentioned meeting all these different people and finding these people on the same path as you. So, some of these guys you mentioned are of an older generation than you, like Steve's older than you are. So what's it, I keep thinking about this kid in that video, his mind got blown by the year after the fish and all that. And looking at you now, like, you also talked a lot about dreams, living your dreams. And a few things I saw with you, like, becoming a pro climber helped you sort of fulfill your dreams as a climber, and climbing the fish was a dream that you had that you fulfilled. So what's it like that now you are on the same path as some of these people that maybe you grew up admiring? Like, I don't know if you put yourself in the same shoes as a Steve House or anything else, but the fact that you can kind of like operate on that level, what's it like thinking about that kid who grew up climbing with in your valley at home?
If I see me now as a kid, and I would have this person, Hansjörg Auer, now in my valley, this would have helped me a lot, to grow, because when I was young in my valley, the alpine climbing scene was really small, we were just the only guys doing it, So what is important for me now is over my career as a climber, I had so many people around me who helped me, who inspired me. I have the feeling now, I'm now 33 years old. I'm still not too old, but getting old, and I think I have the feeling that it's also time for me now to give something back, because I earned so much from the community. And for me, it's really important to start right at the place where I'm from, So in the end, I think you have always keep in mind that not everything was like obvious that it happened, For sure, everybody is aware of his own luck somehow, but many people helped me, inspired me. So I want to give something back to the community, and this is what I want to do, And when I'm climbing, when people are asking me about my solo climbs, I don't want to answer, with grades or facts or times or whatever, If I see, it was possible to inspire them a little bit, to believe on themselves, to have dreams, try to realize them, Don't think too much what other people are talking about you or saying about you. If I can inspire them in this direction a little bit, it's already a lot what I can give back, And in the end, I think this is what we have to do, and to keep our community lively and healthy.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for sitting down.
Sure.
I totally appreciate it. You're on a rest day from Rifle, and we just managed to get this thing worked out, and it's been fascinating and really enjoyable talking to you. So appreciate it, Hans.
I hope the English was okay.
Yeah.
I'm not like, sometimes some words were missing, but
That's all right.
it's all right.
It's charming.
Okay.
Right on. Thanks a lot, man.
Ciao, guys.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, thanks for sitting down, and thanks to Hansjörg. He, like many of his European compatriots, his Austrian compatriots, had no idea what the Enormocast was, but he was game, and I think it turned out great, and I appreciate it. And folks, I want to apologize. I know it's been kind of, again, like a long string of dudes over here at the Enormocast, but as you know, I'm a bit of a mercenary. I just try to get what I get with this face-to-face thing, who's coming through, who I'm passing by. So the opportunities for the ladies coming on just haven't been working out in the last couple months. So bear with me. I'm always looking. I'm always trying to make it happen. And I've got a huge list of amazing women climbers I'd love to talk to. But we just have to figure out how to get face-to-face, and it's not always that easy. But I think it's worth it. I'm sticking with it. 5 years, 131 episodes, cara a cara. All right, folks, hope you're having a great summer in the Northern Hemisphere anyway. Getting out there, climbing a ton, staying safe, not being stupid, and not being lazy. I think it's the laziness that gets a lot of people in the end. So don't be lazy on those few easy things you can do to head off most accidents. In other words, stay frosty out there and check your knot.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.